IndyCar, together with Valvoline.
Hello and welcome to IndyCar Racing for round 3 of the PPG IndyCar World Series from Long Beach, California. This is Ben Edwards, and together with our ESPN commentary team headed by Paul Page, Bobby Unser and Sam Posey, I'll be setting the scene for the 20th running of a major race through the streets of this Los Angeles.
Had to make an engine change.
If the story of the championship so far has been the parity and performance of the 3 different chassis used in Indy cars this year, especially in qualifying, then this weekend someone appears to have rewritten the script. The Penske dream team of Paul Tracy, Alonso Jr. and championship leader Emerson Fittipaldi has grabbed the top 3 places on the grid, and Nigel Mansell, who took a superb pole here that last year, has had to make do with just 4th place on the grid. Well, Nigel Mansell is 18 points behind Emerson Fittipaldi now after the first 2 races of the championship, so he really has got his work to do if he's to try and re-challenge and defend his title from last year. This morning's warm-up saw Paul Tracy fastest once again, so Tracy really is in flying mood. He's scored only 1 point in the championship so far this year, and that was for his pole position last week at Phoenix. There's the circuit, just 1.59 miles long. It's quite a short track, and they're lapping at under a minute. We've got 30 cars competing on just over a mile and a half, so it's going to be pretty tight around the track as well, and overtaking is not that easy. Down at the end of the Shoreline Drive where they're coming down, and at the end of the back straight as well, about the only 2 places that they can overtake, so it could be quite interesting to see whether people can progress their way through the field. What of Michael Andretti, the winner of the first round from Surfers Paradise? Well, he's down quite a long way down. He's 9th place on the grid. He's in fact the 2nd Reynard on the grid, with Maurizio Gugelmin qualifying 8th and his Chip Ganassi teammate Michael Andretti qualifying in 9th. And it doesn't look as though Reynards have quite got the handle on the handling around this Long Beach circuit as yet, with someone being pushed off already, and somebody in trouble in this early stage. They're only on the parade lap. That's Scott Sharp in trouble already, and he's obviously got problems with the Lola. That's a great shame, because once again he's qualified pretty well up the grid on this occasion, but he's obviously not going to take the start. Starting 21st, not as good as he was in Phoenix where he qualified 13th, but nevertheless the young rookie with just experience of Trans Am racing still has been going pretty well. There's the front of the field then, with Nigel Mansell 4th place, Robbie Gordon in 5th position, Mario Andretti in 6th, then it's Raul Boesel and Maurizio Gugelmin, then Michael Andretti and Stefan Johansson, then Bobby Rahal and Teo Fabi, then it's Marco Greco and Jacques Villeneuve. They're coming down to take the green flag for the start of the 20th Toyota Long Beach Grand Prix, and it's the Penske pairing who set off at the front of the field. Has everyone managed to get out of that first corner? It looks like they just about have managed to get through, and Fittipaldi and Tracy just nipping through in front, with Alonso Jr. in 2nd place, Emo in 3rd position. We're going to hand over to our American commentary team now, so keep up with the action. Nigel Mansell in 4th position, chasing after the 3 Penskes.
Looks like only the Penske cars were aligned. It's now Tracy, Alonso Jr., Emerson Fittipaldi. Nigel Mansell pursues from 4th place.
In qualifying, the 3 Penske cars qualified within a 1/10 of a second of each other. It explains why they're running so close right now.
Paul Tracy still running at the front of the field. Will he lead the first lap? Will he win another race here? He scored his first IndyCar victory at this track. Paul Tracy, the number 3 Penske car. Alonso Jr., the 31 car with a black rollover bar. And of course, there is Fittipaldi, the number 2 car, black number 2.
Penske scored his first win ever here last year as a team, having been shut out through all the Andretti and Unser years. Now he's come back with a vengeance with a car that is really handling beautifully.
You know, Sam McCall, one thing is safe to assume, and that Penske has told his drivers, don't wreck each other. Race, but save the really hard racing till right to the end of the race.
This is the fight for 4th place as Robbie Gordon is closing on Nigel Mansell.
The interesting thing is to see Mansell, who had the pole here last year, of course, in eclipse this year. 4th fastest, only in qualifying, not a threat, at least at this point in the race.
Mario Andretti closing on this battle as well. He is car number 6, just behind Robbie Gordon.
You know, Robbie Gordon has really set his sights on emulating Nigel Mansell. As Gordon matured in racing, it was Mansell who was achieving everything last year. So this means a lot for him to have Mansell in his is having
Jack
some
Arut's
trouble.
right there as Bobby Rahal comes rolling down the pits now, and they will be ready with the fire equipment. It's probably not a serious situation, but certainly has everybody concerned. Jack?
Well, Paul, Bobby Rahal brings his car in, and it is on fire in the left rear area. They're taking off the cowling towards the engine. But this is a tough day for Bobby Rahal, because during the last practice session, he started this race realizing that he had a questionable gearbox. He did not go to the backup car, and it's an early DNF for Bobby Rahal and the new Honda engine here at Long Beach.
Back on the circuit, you ride with number 6, Michael Andretti, there for a moment. There he is.
Michael, after his extremely promising start in that new Renard chassis in Surfers Paradise, Australia has had trouble at Phoenix a week ago and was not exceptionally fast in qualifying here either.
That's Gugelmin just ahead of him. Behind him is Johansson.
On board with Michael again, and I just want to make a note on this car. It hasn't looked good. I've been down the turns watching it all weekend. They have not got the car balanced. The shock absorbers look like they don't fit the racetrack well. Definitely are having trouble the Renard cars here at Long Beach.
Is there a solution to their problems, Bobby?
Yes, it is, and it's probably just a discovery thing, Paul. It's just merely matching the track. We knew they were good in Australia, they're just not working good here.
He's produced very well at Indianapolis, so that is promising as we look ahead.
Michael Andretti has struggled with this car throughout the weekend as Scott Sharp goes back into the race and is in the action. Gary Gerald, you have an update on the work they've been doing on this car?
Well, indeed, Paul. You know, he won on the streets of Australia, but it's been a totally frustrating weekend here for this team. He says the problem has been getting grip to the rear of the car. I spoke with him just before he got in the cockpit before the start of this race, and he said it wasn't any better this morning. He qualified in the 9th spot, but he ran only 15 fast in the warm-ups. It's a very frustrated Michael Andretti, who won on the streets of Australia, not doing so well on the streets of Long Beach.
Gary, Bobby and I watched Michael practicing the other day right from the edge of the track. He gets an awful lot of wheels, but he drives the wheels off the car. The crowd roaring approval when he comes by. There's just no speed.
Sammy said that that's one of the keys. He said you can hustle the car through the chicanes of Australia, but here, every time you try to put that car down, it just wants to get away from you, and you can't hustle the car. And he said it seems like the harder you try, the slower you get.
Most of that is caused by different turns at Long Beach as opposed to Australia. Australia almost has straightaways and 90-degree turns. Here, just to take over on Long Beach, turns of different angles all over the place.
The weather here in Southern California is overcast. Temperatures in the mid-70s, no threat of rain at all, but it looks like it's going to be a super day for racing and just right air for carburation.
The car right in front of Michael Gugelmin there. Mauricio Gugelmin, you see there the word Hollywood on the side of the car. That is Brazil's #1 cigarette company, and it explains that this is the International Series that is a sponsor here.
Now with Bobby Rahal out of the race, he's joined Jack Arut.
Well, Bobby, you were concerned about the gearbox. Is that what put you out?
Well, it looks like an oil line broke. It's too bad. The car, we made a change in morning session, and it really ran well, and I was looking forward to the race. And, you know, even with the oil leak in the first lap or two, you know, like this car was super in the corners. I was looking forward to it. It's just a damn shame.
And he needed a boost here, Paul, because he was getting ready to go to Indianapolis for the 500. He didn't race in that race last year.
Well, we hope Bobby Rahal doesn't have a repeat of last year, as he did not make it into the Indy 500-mile race. Watching Raul Boisel now, he runs in 6th place. So in the Toyota Grand Prix of Long Beach is Paul Tracy in front, being chased by Al Unser Jr. and Emerson Fittipaldi. Watching now as we keep an eye on Raul Boisel. I'm Paul Page with Sam Posey, Bobby Unser, Jack Arut, and Gary Gerald. We are at the Toyota Grand Jr., second place. Man who has infused, it seems, a new spirit into this team. Matter of fact, they say that Fittipaldi really likes his presence.
Well, in a sense, Al gave his 20s to the Rick Gallis team, and I think he'll give his decade of his 30s to the Penske team. He is a man who can bring attitude to the team, and that's very important. They say, how much does a driver really mean in a team? Is he just the guy that stands on the accelerator? No. He inspires the whole team.
That's right. I was just down talking to Jerry Freon, the right rear man and very important man on that team, does all the fabrication work on that car. He said the same thing. He said they are so happy with little Al because he brought a lot of motivation and enthusiasm to that team. And that's what a team is all about. Teams are really teams, not individuals.
No change at the top of the order. Paul Tracy runs alone. You're looking at the key battle on the race course. It's the fight for second between Fittipaldi and Little Al.
Although, speaking of teams, the Penske team runs one car against another against another. In other words, they have an intramural rivalry there. Each team run in the pits by a different tactician. So this is a real race for points that we're watching, not just a demonstration by the Penske team.
Paul Tracy runs alone as we keep an eye on the fight within the Penske team. Tracy is one of only 8 drivers ever to lead here at Long Beach.
And with that aerial view, you can get a fairly good idea of this capacity crowd here at Long Beach. Over 80,000 here today. We had 203,000 last year. And they are certainly enjoying the festivities. Of course, lots of other races going on this weekend. One more race to come this afternoon. But the race right now is between the 3 Penske Ilmores out on the track with Paul Tracy out in front, Alonso Jr. in second, and Emerson Fittipaldi in third. And Emmo can really sort of take it as a conservative race this weekend because he has a fairly healthy points lead in the championship. And even a third place finish will keep about a 15-point lead in that championship. So I think we'll find Emmo going to be racing mainly for points this weekend. To run down our international field for you, after those top 3, Nigel Mansell currently running in 4th, Robbie Gordon in 5th. Then we have Raul Boesel in 7th, and Mauricio Gugelmin in 8th. Sweden, Stefan Johansson is in 10th. Marco Greco running in 11th. In 12th is Teo Fabi, and in 13th, Jacques Villeneuve, also in the Reynard, who had a great run going at Phoenix, trying to repeat what his father did back here in 1979 and take a win. Scott Villiers from Canada is in 14th. In 15th, Dutchman Arie Luyendyk, and Fernandez out of Mexico running in 17th. Alessandro Zampedri, who had a terrible race in Australia, is in 18th. And running down the list also, we have Frank Thiel out of Paris, currently running in 25th. His first race in the Indy Series, having run in the Indy Lights previously. Claude Bourbonnais, who's come up from the Toyota Atlantic Series, currently running in 26th position. And rounding out, well, Hiro Matsushita actually never made the start here. He did not qualify. We had 34 cars come here and try and qualify for this race, and only 30 made the field. As now you see the battle between the 2 Brazilians, Raul Boesel and Mauricio Gugelmin, out on the track, and they are trailing Mario. Right there is Jacques Villeneuve. Looks like he had a bit of a spin and is now going a lap down to the leaders. That is Claude Bourbonnais in the Team Losi Performance team, which is run by John Dick. John Paul Jr. ran in that car at Phoenix, and it's the same car that John Paul Jr. ran in. There's a little bit of sponsorship come over from Players Limited out of Canada as they support him, and he raced for them last year in the Toyota Atlantic Series. So Claude Bourbonnais goes down a lap. He's raced here, of course, before on this track, but this is the first time for him in an IndyCar. There you see Emerson Fittipaldi rounding out the top 3. Let's go back now to Paul Page, Sam Posey, and Bobby Unser.
We're back at the Toyota Grand Prix of Long Beach as we take a look at the running order. The field led from the green by Paul Tracy. The battle is between Unser Jr. and Fittipaldi. Though for the moment it is broken off just a bit as they had to cycle around the car of Paul Bourbonnais, who when they first came up on him really pitched it sideways, almost caught the wall, but kept it going. New driver to the IndyCars, Bourbonnais.
Exactly. Paul Tracy, a fellow Canadian, is driving a car that is brand new here. You will recall, if you saw the race at Phoenix last
distinct sets of tactics in Team Penske. We may begin to see some of them unfolding for Emerson Fittipaldi. Their team is electing to look for a yellow as early as lap 15. They want to come in early and try and use attrition to work their way back to the front. They're hoping that there will be a full course yellow. History has shown that there generally is between laps 15 and 25.
I was going to say, Jack, by the way, we have a car off and in a very precarious area. They may get it Dominic Dawson, so they may actually get their wish. We'll see if he's going to get restarted. But Jack Arute, if I can ask you further, was not that the anticipation of everybody up and down the pits that there would be a early yellow, in fact, perhaps earlier than this?
Well, most people felt because of the tight quarters of racing here, Paul, that there would be several full course yellows. But in the case of Roger Penske's crew, as you know, although we've alluded to the fact that sometimes he calls the shots, they are left to make their own decisions. And this was a decision they made after warm-ups this morning.
So now back to the front of the field. Paul Tracy, the number 3 car, still leads it. And it doesn't seem that they're going to go to full course yellow while Dominic Dawson sits in what appears to be a fairly precarious position.
Well, normally they're not. They'll just have a area, what we call an area yellow right there for Dominic. But on the Penske cars, Paul, the cars ironically are identical cars. The settings on them are almost to the degree exactly the same as one of the other. But the game plans for the race are up to the teams individual. They can do pit stop or game planning any way they want to as far as Penske's concerned.
Take a look as they get down toward the first corner at the back of Paul Tracy's car here. The fin, the shark fin. They first came out with that a week ago at Phoenix, and it's part of development that leads to an announcement this week that they made that they're going to be racing at Indianapolis with the Mercedes engine, a pushrod production-based engine.
Paul, this is really an earth-shattering announcement made mainly by Penske Racing and Mercedes-Benz. They're not going to race with the Mercedes next year at Indy. They're going to race this year. It's probably the best-kept secret in racing in the last 10 or 15 years, I would say. What it means, they're going to take advantage of what you might call a loophole or an incentive clause in the Indy rules, run a stock block engine, which rumors already have posted it, they think, as much as 1,000 horsepower. They should have tremendous, at least a speed advantage. Reliability will of course be a question, but it's major racing news. Penske and Mercedes getting together.
And ironically, Sam, the reliability on the engine, the testing, they've run many tests so far at 500 miles and longer, 500 to 600 miles with the same engine without any failure. And believe it or not, they were running in all that snow back in Nazareth, Pennsylvania, shoveling snow all night long, starting to run at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Don't you find it amazing that they kept that a secret and they kept the fin a secret? I mean, the Penske group is really operating as marked men now. You wonder what else they might know about what's ahead.
Competition's very severe today.
Something else to remember as we look forward to the Indy 500. Pushrod engine has completed 200 laps, the full 500 miles, only once in the last 25 years. So now we keep track of the leader, Paul Tracy. You can see he's pulled out ahead of second place Al Unser Jr., but Emerson Fittipaldi is staying in the fight.
Back to the action from Long Beach, and look at this. Race leader Paul Tracy in trouble. He's clashed with, it looks like, Mike Groff. Let's watch as he comes down to lap quite a big group of cars, and in fact Tracy losing it on the brakes as he came down into the end corner, and yes indeed collecting Mike Groff, but it looked to me as though Paul Tracy had already lost that on the brakes as he went into the end corner. So Paul Tracy throwing it away once again. This is unbelievable. I really thought that Tracy would keep it together today. Last year, remember, he won here at Long Beach after 2 non-finishes in the first 2 races. I thought perhaps we were looking for a repeat performance here, but it's not to be, and it's little Al leading the race now. Al Unser Jr. leading his first race for Penske. So what a great performance, and he will have watched that and been astonished, no doubt, but handed the race lead ahead of teammate Emerson Fittipaldi. Fittipaldi, the man with the big advantage in the points at the moment, so he'll be careful not to do anything silly and maybe just quite happy to watch Al Unser Jr. lead the way. Well, if Al wins today, it would be a truly remarkable record here. He has taken 4 wins already on the Long Beach circuit, and this would make it his 5th win in California. And going one better than the Andretti family have managed between them. They've managed 4 race wins here between them, Michael and Mario. But little Al could really set his name in the record books here once again if he could win this race. Long way to go, though. We've only completed 22 laps out of the 105 scheduled for the race. So a long way to go yet before we get a final decision. But Al Unser Jr. finding his way through past the traffic. Just getting past Jacques Villeneuve. And heading on up through the order. Emerson Fittipaldi then in second place. Mansell now up into third position. With the demise of Paul Tracy. Robbie Gordon still holding on to fourth place. Mario Andretti in fifth position. And this is where life really does start getting tricky, finding a way past the slower cars. So we're going to rejoin our American commentary team, keep us up to date with the situation.
Junior definitely caught up in traffic now and taking care, I think, as he's coming through there. He's being cautious.
This is the first time that Al Jr. has really led a race substantially for Roger Penske since he joined the team this season. So this is a very proud moment.
And an important moment for him.
Yeah, psychologically, you always wait to make that mark with the new team, particularly when it's a team with a rich history of Penske. And of course, this deal long in the coming and now reaching fruition.
You know, just like that hairpin turn right there where you saw little Al working up on that lap traffic, Sam. He doesn't want to go in there and touch a wing. That would just be disastrous at this point. Watch him right here going down the end of the front straightaway here, very fast speed. Very careful not to take any chances on passing right now.
16 cars still on the leader lap. Al Unser Jr. is trying to pass Adrian Fernandez in the 7 car just ahead of him. Fernandez currently runs in 16th place. So at the top of the order now with the change is Al Unser Jr., then Fittipaldi, then Nigel Mansell now third. Robbie Gordon is fourth. Mario Andretti runs in 5th place, followed by Raul Boesel, Mauricio Gugelmin, Michael Andretti, Stefan Johansson. Marco Greco has moved up into the top 10 and runs 10th right now. Al Unser Jr. is leading this race for the 7th time in 11 years. We'll be back after this message and a word from our ABC station.
And there you just saw Adrian Fernandez make a move on Mark Smith for position. That's for 15. Mark Smith, of course, coming back after that incident last weekend at Phoenix where he was unable to race. I spoke to him this morning. He said he feels fine, no pain, no soreness or anything. But right now he's got Al Unser Jr. all over the back of his car. As you see Paul Tracy's car being towed away. Paul Tracy now this season getting off to a disastrous start for him with 3 DNFs. He's got 2 points in the championship and they both come from getting... Oh, Emerson Fittipaldi is very close to Mark Smith. In fact, it looks like they may have made contact and Mark Smith got bumped out. But Paul Tracy now with only 2 points in the championship, both those points coming from qualifying on the pole position, and he will not win the $105,000 in the Marlboro Pole Awards today. The man who gets the pole and can win from the pole, that money will now be boosted up to Indianapolis and be a big prize money for whoever can do that. $10,000 for winning from the pole, to get the pole, $15,000 for winning from the pole, and it's a pyramid. It builds up every week if no one wins it, and we're up to $105,000 so far. So Emerson Fittipaldi currently running in second to his new teammate Al Unser Jr. This will help Emo as far as the championship is concerned. Stefan Johansson and Jimmy Vasser currently tied for second in the championship, both with 22 points. Michael Andretti is fourth, Nigel Mansell is fifth, and Al Unser Jr. is sixth in the PPG Cup. As the series gets underway, this is the third race of a 16-race calendar. Our top 5 right now, Al Unser Jr., followed by Emerson Fittipaldi, Nigel Mansell, Robbie Gordon, and Mario Andretti rounding out the top 5. Raul Boesel having a good run in 6th, and also Mauricio Gugelmin, who's doing very well, running in 8th position right now. He has lost a position to Michael Andretti in the other Reynard, so the 2 Reynards having a great battle out there. Paul Tracy has just gone by us in pit lane. He's got his car fired up again, but he's many laps down now, and he'll get some new tires, refuel, and get back out on the track. Remember, last year he survived 4 pit stops, including 2 flat tires, to come back and take that win, because a lot of attrition here last year, including the incident with Al Unser Jr. and Nigel Mansell, and there's still some feeling, I think, between these guys about that incident last year. But so far, fairly clean racing, a fairly clean track. We are 15 cars on the lead lap, and we are a 105 lap race with a whole slew of pit stops to
Toyota Grand Prix of Long Beach, the leaders now very carefully having to tiptoe their way through traffic. Emerson Fittipaldi trying to find a way, perhaps in between Adrian Fernandez and Ari Leyendijk, the two cars that just ahead. He's around Leyendijk now, trying to stay in contact with his teammate Al Unser Jr., who is the leader.
Little Al had problems getting around this thing.
Whoa, and Davy Jones is in trouble along with Mark Smith. Jones is going to try to get it going again, but remember, those walls are right there.
You know, the big secret that's spinning out here, which does happen occasionally, is not to kill your engine. Davey didn't kill his, but it looks like now that he has. In other words, kept his engine running. Here's a replay of it coming down.
All right, the two cars were battling for 19th place. Jones just got into the side of Mark Smith as they came in the corner. Nigel ducked by on the inside.
Nigel was the lucky one. Davey locked up his brakes. When you lock up your brakes and you can't let them off real quick, you have, in effect, no steering. He ran right into the side of Mark Smith. The problem would have been Davy Jones. He's the guy that caused that one.
He has been having a very unhappy year in that A.J. Foyt car. Crashing, Surfers Paradise trouble last week. I talked to him about an hour before the race. His morale is low, and this isn't going to help any.
Sometimes teams just don't click, and these two guys are not clicking. I've been down the turn stand watching Davey. Sometimes he looks good, sometimes he looks terrible. So he's not working with the mechanics properly. Somewhere or another, the whole team is just not working together.
And Mark Smith, of course, a very promising young driver from the Northwest. He's had his problems too. Didn't even qualify for last week. He rode it out in the hospital.
Now it would appear that Davy Jones, he got out there, had first gear, but no reverse. Now remember, these cars on a road circuit are supposed to have reverses. Maybe his is not working, but he was able to take off without getting a push start there.
He has a reverse gear, he told me he did. Nigel Mansell, of course, has moved into third now as we ride with him.
Here's what happened. Boy, look at Nigel. He almost totally lost it. Lock to lock. Whoa!
That was close. But look at the reflexes by Nigel Mansell. I mean, he really owes the fact that he's still in the race to the fact that he saw what was coming and had those incredible reflexes along with good judgment.
All right, Jack Arute, pit side. Update on Paul Tracy.
Well, you guys were talking about the fact that there's a problem if you don't keep the car going. Well, that was the case with Paul Tracy. He had to get the car restarted, lost the valuable time. The only thing that he had wrong with the car when they came in is he had actually tore up the tire on the right rear. They replaced that tire, and now he's back, but he's way off the lead pace.
Jack, unfortunately, I don't know what his morale was, but Tracy has yet to outgrow the sense that he's a mistake maker, and he made another one today, a small one, but so costly.
Sammy's down, Tracy's down 6 laps. That's more than you can overcome for helping you there.
25 car of Marco right Bobby, and Scott Goodyear is there. Well, Jack Arute.
Well, there's all about Paul Tracy. You remember, it was only 3 years ago they tried to run a coin here. His father and he saved up their money from their construction business, and they came here, and they only made a couple of laps. He left dejectedly and thought he was going to have to go to the construction business. That's when Roger Penske sent word that he should come over and meet with him. They signed later that year a testing contract. And then Paul Tracy, 1 year later, comes back and wins here at Long Beach. So he's had more than his share of ups and downs here on Oceanside Drive.
Well, for a moment, Marco Greco was able to pull away from Teo, and Teo is locked in this tremendous battle with Scott Goodyear and Jacques Villeneuve just behind him. A three-way battle for 10th place. Occasionally, they catch up tonight.
Well, we've got to watch that a little bit. Now, those guys are weaving back and forth, almost having a lot of contact. Nobody is driving any harder than those three for a while there, Paul.
Well, Marco Greco is driving, you might say, a little bit over his head in terms of the record that he has. His best finish ever in IndyCar competition is 11th. So he's really, and you can see a couple of times Bobby in the yellow car there trying to get by him, Greco cutting him off. I think Greco's doing a beautiful job, but whether he can sustain it or not is the question.
I saw Marco in the paddock area last night into the day. Most everyone else was gone. And Marco was just so pleased with his qualifying effort. He says he finally really has a car and a team that he thinks can do something, and he seems to be proving it here. So at the front of the field, it's Al Unser Jr. Little Al started second and took the win. The winner started second the last 3 years here at Long Beach. He leads it now.
And as we ride on board with Scott Goodyear,
Damage to the rear shortcut into the pits that you are allowed to take if you have a problem in the car. It looks like if he can get rid of that banner, maybe pop rid of that wing back in place, he's going to go again.
Quick thinking to duck into the pits that way.
You got to remember now, the rear wing is broken. You look at the piece hanging down from it.
We really did
That's
see.
not a livable situation on the racetrack going fast. That's something they'll have to fix.
He was over his head there. It was exciting to watch, but he was over his head.
That's not a car problem, Sam. It's just like you said.
Already the team has the spare wing out and they're ready to go. And we're going to keep an eye here because best indications are that Al Unser Jr. may head for the pits anytime now. And here he is. So Al Unser Jr. comes in for his stop, Jack.
And Paul, there was some debate as to whether they would make a wing adjustment on the front of the car. Richard Buck goes to work, and they do. They adjust the wing. They're going to change all 4 tires. A nominal stop this way. You can see a lot of the dust that comes off the actual brake rotors from the use of the brakes here at the Long Beach. Remember, they shift 1,690 times. Little Al having trouble shifting that time to get back out in a little over 18.4 seconds.
Now, another thing to remember as you watch Little Al lead, the speed limit in the pits today, 60 miles an hour. What they call the drop dead means they get a black flag, 66. If the radar gun says 66, until they get right there, they have to pull them in on a black flag. Over the blue line.
Fuel in, the amount of fuel that it takes to change all 4 tires. We're going to wait and see if that's what they do. That's exactly what they do. A tactical move, Gary Gerald.
Nigel Mansell's crew servicing him for the first time off the jacks. This is a good stop. Now a delay on the fuel. He's rolling in 13.8 seconds.
Great stop for the Newman Haas team. Fascinating stop for Penske. It takes longer to fuel than it does to change tires, and they decided to just drop it as soon as the tires were changed, eh, Jack?
Well, here's what they're going to try and do. They were debating whether they should make that type of stop now or for their final stop. It's what we call a time stop. They've calculated their fuel, and they feel that in one of the stops they were going to take on a full load. They felt that with the way Al Unser Jr. is running, that now's the time to lay the cards on the table and see what their compatriot Roger Penske will do to match that in the last stop. Now, the last stop will be the long stop because they got to take on a full load of fuel.
Bobby, normally it's a switch of that. You time stop the last stop.
It's the first time I've ever seen it
Absolutely,
done.
and now we're getting word that number 31, Al Unser Jr. may be getting a stop-and-go penalty.
Yeah, it looked to me like in the first seconds after he started away from his pits, he might have exceeded that 60.
Let me tell you, it's very difficult. All the drivers say that in second gear, trying to go between 60 and 70 miles an hour is critical. He was clocked reportedly at 80 miles an hour. In fact, Al Unser Jr. was one of the drivers in the drivers' meeting that lobbied really hard to try and have the actual speed limit raised from 60 to 70, but he lost in a blind vote of all the drivers in the field.
So many things happening at once here. We saw another car stuck into the tire barrier. We'll try to get you up to speed on everything. Well, that was Marco Greco, who was having such a great race up until then, so we'll keep track of that. And let's take a look. There comes the 2-car through.
Now, Little Al still came out in the lead on all this pit stop strategy, Paul, but remember, what you gain one time, you're going to pay for later on. So I'm not too sure a strategy like that is good.
Yeah, here he comes.
Here's Little Al coming in for it, obviously the stop-and-go penalty. And people have to realize they run a car that's capable of 230, 240 miles an hour down to 60 miles an hour is sometimes just utterly ridiculous. So a lot of the drivers could be having that problem today.
This, of course, puts Emerson Fittipaldi into the lead the first time he has ever led a race here at Long Beach. Interesting.
Bobby, there has been some concern, a couple of people that we've talked to this weekend, most notably A.J. Foyt, that they're so fast on that black flag for exceeding the speed limit in the pits, and yet no penalty last week for Nigel Mansell at Phoenix when he jumped over the grass strip and got out on the race course, and no penalty for Bill Neff after coming around and hitting Mashusta in that accident at Phoenix.
Paul, what it is, a lot of the racing people, they are screaming politics, inadequate officiating by Wally Dallenbeck, the chief steward, who on race day is totally in charge. And I think that there's something to some of this stuff. Certain guys get penalized, and they seem to get penalized often. Other guys don't get penalties at all. For example, Nigel Mansell right there, number 1.
Inside of Michael Andretti, very exciting.
Almost collided with Michael there. But Nigel has
Father
really
and
been...
son are having an argument here.
Nigel has been kind kind of immune to penalties, and I think everybody's getting a little bit tired of that.
Let's go pit side, Gary Gerald.
Just a quick update on Villeneuve. He came in, and while that whole flurry of pit stops was taking place up and down the road, the Forsyth Green team replaced the entire rear wing. He's now back on course. They had some damage up around the Wickerbill, so they replaced the whole rear wing assembly. Lost a lot of time, but he's still in the competition. Also, we've had reports of a couple of more of those pit lane violations. Davy Jones, 68 miles an hour. They were going to penalize Greco. As you mentioned, he ended up in a tire barrier.
Villeneuve lost 5 laps and dropped to 20th position with that long stop while they repaired the wing. Still pretty quick service there. Let's give you the top of the order. Emerson Fittipaldi leads it, followed by Allenser Jr. 15 seconds behind. Then Nigel Mansell, Robbie Gordon, Raul Boisel. We're watching Mario. They came through a yellow flag that flies for Marco Greco at the end of the main straightaway. Mario and Michael are running together on this course, and as we've seen, have been at one another fairly constantly in the last few laps. So it's still Fittipaldi, or now Fittipaldi in reality, that leads at the Toyota Grand Prix of Long Beach.
So as the first round of pit stops gets underway, some very exciting going off with some order changes. And of course, Jacques Villeneuve, who maybe slightly over-aggressive driving, pushing it a little too hard, goes off and loses 5 laps. Marco Greco, who he was racing against, also ends up in the tire wall and is out of this race. Scott Goodyear, who that whole battle was taking place with, between himself, Teo Fabi, Jacques Villeneuve, and Marco Greco. Scott Goodyear came in for his regular pit stop, but has now been in for about 2 or 3 laps, and they are working on that car furiously. We're not quite sure what the problem is with that car. And there you see Paul Tracy, who was overshot turn 6. That's the outside of turn 6. He's gone into the runoff area, kept the motor running by the looks of things, and will rejoin the race behind Emerson Fittipaldi. He will, of course, stay in that 4 or 5 laps down that he is from before, from his incident earlier. He is currently running in the 22nd position, maybe pushing a little too hard, trying to make his way back up through the field. The field now, we're down to 25 cars, actually make that 23 cars because Vassar is also out along with Mark Smith. Stefan Johansson from Sweden currently in 9th. In 8th, Mauricio Guzman out of Brazil. Raul Boesel, the other Brazilian, is in 5th behind Robbie Gordon. Dutchman Arie Luyendyk in 12th. Adrian Fernandez, the Mexican, in 11th. Teo Fabi is in 10th. Robbie Buell having a good run in 13th. Alessandro Zampredi is in 14th. Willie T. Ribbs, who was quickest in the qualifying of the second group at one point yesterday, now runs in 15th. And the Frenchman Frank Frion, making his debut in the IndyCar Series, currently running in 16th. This, of course, is the first time that all 30 cars have run on the track at the same time. They practice and they qualify in 2 groups of 15 generally. And so first time from all to be out there, and that's why we're seeing so many incidents. We mentioned that patch at turn 6, which is very slippery, and also the hairpin as they come into that right now, which is also a very tricky part of this course. Emerson Fittipaldi gets by it nicely.
This is one page. We're back in the Toyota Grand Prix of Long Beach, where the yellow flags fly in tandem, 2 of them at the start-finish line, indicating a full course yellow. So they will now line up behind Tony Robinson in the pace car. And Gideon Bennett, 12 seconds that Emerson Fittipaldi and Allenser Jr. is now lost. While we don't have an official reason, one suspects that cars which are in barriers all around the course are the reason. They want to get all the safety equipment out, get everything pulled out of the barriers and the course clear again, would you say, Bobby?
Oh, it certainly is right, Paul. There comes a point in time where they just have to say there's too many cars in too many places, and they could have wrecks start to stack up on top of the wreck. So they have to stop and leave it all.
Marco Greco's car, the barrier there, and out comes the record to get that one. Last week at Phoenix, race fans saw one of the most frightening crashes in recent history. Gary Gerald had an opportunity to look more closely at that incident.
Without question, the incident that we saw last week in Turn 4 at Phoenix has to be one of the most frightening incidents that we've seen in recent years in IndyCar racing. Let's go back and reconstruct this scenario. Coming out of Turn 3, incidental contact between Aaron Bautista and Teo Fabi. As they spun up toward the wall, Paul Tracy's car.
And from the Goodyear blimp high above the city of Long Beach, California. We're in a southern suburb of Los Angeles. There you get a good look of Ocean Boulevard. The track over the 20 years has changed quite a bit. The elevation changes aren't in the track like they were before. They still run down Shoreline Boulevard. And as Brian Redman, who returned here for the first time in 20 years, said the coastline, of course, has changed immensely as far as the buildings, the hotels, and really this race has had a great impact. Chris Pook, the promoter, the Englishman, the promoter of this event for the last 20 years, has had a great impact on the city of Long Beach. And we've had Formula 5000 cars race here back in 1975. And then, of course, the Formula 1 ran here from 76 through 82. And in 1984 or 83, the IndyCars came here. And of all the IndyCar races we've had here, we've only actually had about 3 or 4 different winners, because Mario Andretti has won it 4 times, Alonso Jr. has won it 4 times, Danny Sullivan with 1 win, and Paul Tracy with a win here at Long Beach. Currently about 65 degrees with some high clouds, winds blowing about 10 to 15 miles per hour out of the southwest, no threat of rain, and we are right now under a full course caution to remove Marco Greco's car, who was having a good run up as high as 9th at one point, but is now off at turn 1. There again, with the aerial view, you can see the Civic Center there, which has got that wonderful mural painted all down the side of it, or all around the side of it, in the paddock area, where we have the Indy Lights Series, and of course Toyota Atlantic races here this weekend. There was
To Long Beach, we're nearly at half distance now. We've just completed 51 laps. We're still under a yellow flag at the moment, though, because of the various cars that are littering the circuit after the action, as 30 cars try and scrap their way around this 1.59 mile circuit, and certainly seems to be causing a few problems throughout the race so far. The order at the moment: Emerson Fittipaldi leading Alonso Jr., who had been leading but had to come into the pits for a stop-and-go penalty after speeding in the pit lane. Nigel Mansell, with whom we're on board now, is holding on to 3rd place. Robbie Gordon in 4th position, and Raul Boesel in 5th place. Those 5 cars are all on the lead lap, but 6th and downwards are now a lap or more behind. So Fittipaldi, Unser, Mansell, Gordon and Boesel, the top 5, as the competitors go around on the 52nd lap now, and nearly at half distance. 105 laps of this Long Beach circuit scheduled in this 20th Toyota Grand Prix. It certainly is providing a lot of action, but most of the action coming through trying to get past the slower traffic. Marco Greco providing quite a lot of entertainment as well. But let's have a look as the race gets underway again. Emerson Fittipaldi leading the field, with Nigel Mansell next up. Where is Alonso Jr.? Let's rejoin our American commentary team.
Battle for position. The position is 6th.
And as we look at when they cross the start-finish line on the restart here, Paul, 4 seconds behind for Little Al compared to Emil.
Mario has been ahead of Michael throughout the race, so the fact that Michael did not get by there just then does not mean that he's going to be held off. What is important is that Michael is now ahead of Kugelman there. Both those cars, Renards, run out of the same team, the Chip Ganassi team, but with different engineers.
So you ride with Michael Andretti, the Reynard car, chasing the Lola of his father just ahead. They'll have breakfast in the morning together, and that pretty well ends the conversations for the day.
It's amazing sometimes, like with Michael and his father, Mario, who's right in front of him there, how close they run together and how often we worry about them touching each other. But ironically, they work like a team that way. In other words, they very seldom have a problem together.
Well, of course, when they both ran for Newman Haas, they were able to share technical information, which I think both of them enjoyed tremendously. Now, mum's the word, of course, technically.
Black flag given to Scott Goodyear for exceeding the speed limit into the pits. He came in and out for a stop-and-go penalty.
That happened
in on that stop and go.
Keeping an eye now on the 31 car of Al Unser Jr. That's Stefan Johansson just behind him, but he has one lap off of the race. Currently running in 9th place. You just saw the full running order.
Stefan Johansson, normally very fast on road circuits, been very fast in practice, but he had an accident yesterday. And I don't think they have their car quite up to speed since then, Paul.
In fact, that car was fairly heavily damaged. The team was working quite late last night. I was surprised with the damage he sustained in practice yesterday that they were going to get that car back together at all. They did a beautiful job.
Well, we were both talking and wondering how they were going to find the car for him because we didn't think the car could be repaired overnight. So it shows you sometime how good the mechanics really are.
Bettenhausen team was borrowing parts from everywhere to get that thing going. Al Unser Jr. picks his way through traffic.
The car in question is the blue and red car that's just off the screen to the right. You'll see it come through in a second. Johansson right there. Former Grand Prix driver, several times on the podium in Grand Prix, finishing in the first 3, but never managed to win, and he's never managed to win here either.
Well, Emerson Fittipaldi has now completed 55 laps, 14 laps since his last stop as the leader of the race. 6.5 seconds back is Al Unser Jr. 2 seconds behind little Al is Nigel Mansell, first, second, and third. We'll be back after this message and a word from our ABC station.
And a couple of interesting points come up as we are in lap 55, or completed lap 55 of 105 laps. Total of 2.25 kilometers around this track, 1.59 miles, 7 right-handers, 2 left-handers. My able assistants in the booth pointed out a couple of things. When Paul Tracy had his incident, he came out ahead of Nigel Mansell, and there was a little bit of rumor mongering whether he would be holding up Nigel Mansell, as Nigel was catching Al Unser Jr. at that point. But Nigel has managed to make his way around Paul Tracy. And also from my other able assistant, we understand that the Reynards here, all forms of racing they've done here at the Long Beach track, including the Toyota Atlantic Series, have never ever really had a good car on this track. So Michael and Mauricio right now both running in those Reynards. One is Mauricio Guzman's crew chief, John Bright, who's been around racing and out of England for a long time. Those guys are struggling with their setup here, and I spoke to Tom Anderson before the race, and their big problem is mechanical grip, getting the tires to stick to the track as they come out of these slower corners and put the power down. Really having trouble with that on the Reynards here at the Long Beach track. And of course, that is very important on a track like this. The gearboxes are very important, and the shock absorber selection is very, very important. The suspension, of course, crucial to keep those tires and wheels on the track at all times. There you see Stefan Johansson getting a little sideways, and he puts the power on coming out of turn 1, heading into the turn 3 section onto the back straightaway, which is very quick, as you heard earlier, about 195 miles per hour down here. That is Seaside Way as they head into a very tight right-hander turn 6, which has got, you'll see that new patch of concrete on the inside as Nigel Mansell gets by Stefan Johansson. And there you see he gives him the thumbs up, saying thanks for letting me by. You saw me in your mirrors, and clear. And now he's coming up on, I believe that is Scott Goodyear right in front of him. No, that is Mauricio Guzman in front of him. Scott Goodyear had a lengthy pit stop, and as you saw, had a black flag penalty. He's currently running in 20th position. Looking at the rest of our international field, Raul Boesel is currently in 5th. Mauricio Guzman in 8th. Stefan Johansson in 9th. Teo Fabi in 10th. Adrian Fernandez in the Gallus team running 11th. The Gallus team, of course, has 5 victories here at Long Beach, looking for number 6. Dutchman Harry Leindijk running for the Project Indy team. Sal Incadella, one of the owners on that team, he said the first time he came here was as a mechanic for James Hunt. Now he's come back as a team owner, running Harry Leindijk, who's currently running in 12th. Robbie Buell having a good run in 13th. Frank Frion out of Paris is in 15th. Robbie Groff making his first IndyCar start. Brother to Mike Groff is currently running in 16th. Alessandro Zampedri is in 17th. Jack Villeneuve in 19th, but a number of laps down. And Paul Tracy right behind him. Let's go back to Paul and Sam Posey.
We're back at round number 3, the PPG IndyCar World Series, the Toyota Grand Prix of Long Beach. Emerson Fittipaldi is the leader of the race. 59 laps of the 105-lap scheduled distance are complete. The early leader was Paul Tracy, but then coming through traffic, lapping cars, he got into trouble and off the course. That took him out of the lead. Then Al Unser Jr. picked up the lead of the race. And little Al and the Penske team did a fascinating maneuver. They pulled a time stop for their first pit stop, hoping hoping to try to pick up some time and set themselves up for the end of the race. Allenser Jr. runs in second place now. Nigel Mansell third, Robbie Gordon fourth, Raul Boycel fifth.
And they've really been having some hard battles. Lowell's had a lot of cars to pass because he did get that penalty back in the field. He's been complaining over the radio that he'd like to see more move-over flags. And I don't blame him a bit for wanting that. But the other guys would like that too, Paul.
Any help you can take. We're watching Mauricio Gugelmin and Stefan Johansson as they were battling for a little bit there. Now the leader's coming around to overhaul Gugelmin, who's having a pretty good day. Oh, as he gets it sideways.
Now that's more than one time there for Tracy Wright in this race. Paul is really having a problem, and I'd have to think that the problem he's actually having is he has too much rear brake. As soon as he touches the brakes hard, locks the rear tires, and around it goes.
I was going to say the same place, same problem. That's got to be a brake light.
These cars have adjustments inside of them. They can adjust the brakes. You can watch him now. He's coming underneath Gugelmin there. Starts pushing on the brakes. Watch the fronts don't locking up. They see the rears light up. Now, that's Paul's fault. He's probably adjusted the brake bias the wrong way, causing the problem from the cockpit.
And the point is, Bobby, if your fronts lock up, the car remains fairly stable. When the rears lock up, you swap ends.
Of course, the idea, Sam, is to have all four of them if they're going to lock at the same time, which is almost impossible.
Yeah, you got a good idea, too, there from that one shot on the replay of all the brake that is being done going in that corner, all those black marks. What do they do in the cockpit, Bobby, to keep him from twisting the brake control the wrong direction?
Well, it's called education. You just tell the guy to the right does one thing, to the left does the other. And what happens is the drivers are smart enough to know that. The problem is they get excited in the race. They forget which way they needed to turn the bias. They turn it the wrong way. Then he finds out when he's at the end of a 190-mile-an-hour straightaway.
Well, Tracy trying to come back up to speed now. He is well out of the top 20.
But just
and
virtually
6 laps, now 7 laps behind the lead.
It's just virtually a bad day for Paul. It looks like it just gets worse as it goes on. I bet he's really wondering by now.
Smooth run for Emerson Fittipaldi now. He runs in the lead of the race. Jack Arute, you have an update. Emerson slows. All of a sudden, Emerson slows. Jack Arute's been watching from pit side. Emerson raises his hand, indicating that he is slowing. And this looks like a serious problem. Here is Little Al taking the lead. Al comes past, picks up the lead of the race. Let's go pit side. Jack Arute, do you have any idea what's going on?
Well, Paul, we're getting conflicting reports. You know, one of the things that happened with Team Penske this year is they have scrambled their radios, so you can't eavesdrop. The team is a little concerned. At first, they thought it might be a gearbox problem, but now the secondary thought is it may be an electrical problem. He's limping his way back to the pits where the crew will take a look at it, and we'll give you a report then.
In the hairpin now, he'll be around that corner in a second.
Another thing to remember now, Penske cars are all identical. So Roger Penske is going to be worrying, whatever happened to Emil, is it going to happen to Little Al too? Because it's obviously going to be his only chance of winning this race is Little Al. So he'll be the first one to want to know what is wrong with Emil's car when it comes in right now.
All right, Emerson heads for the pits. Jack is waiting.
Well, Bobby Unser, you were alluding to the fact that they felt the engine sounds fine here. They're going to change tires. It may have been that he had a problem finding a gear because it looks as if they're not going to take any cowlings off. And one of the things that we were told, because of the type of gear ratios you have to run here, sometimes you can clip off a little piece of the gear. He stalled the engine now when you're shifting. And Emmo is not at all happy, but Bobby, as you know, with the different gears between first, second, third, and fourth, you can clip them off and it can become difficult shifting.
Jack, the most likely problem is that Emmo ran out of fuel. Remember, he had a time to stop. Most likely he's out of fuel, and the reason it dies right now is it hasn't purged the air out of the system. It's fuel injection, but it still has to get the air out.
But Bobby, he came in, took his normal stop. He stalled after the stop. He had taken on the fuel. It sounds like he's still stuck in that fifth gear.
Major development as far as the championship standings are concerned. Emerson came in here with a substantial lead, 37 points to 22 for his nearest pursuer. And if he had won this race or even finished second, he would have gone into Indy with a hammerlock on the series. This opens things right up.
Pretty slow rollout, which helps support that gear argument, Bobby.
Well, let's just watch and see if he gets back up to speed. If he did, then obviously he did run out of fuel. If not, remember, these are sequential gear transmissions. Or in other words, to the people who ride motorcycles, they're just like a motorcycle. And all the cars today are that way of the new models. Now, that means that you put it in first, go to second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and so on.
All right, Jack now's had a chance to talk with the Penske team?
I talked with Chuck Sprague, and here's exactly what it gave us. They were surmising the same way we did. At first, they were referring to it as a temporary gear shifting problem. The car was hung up in gear. Chuck Sprague, though, much like you did, Bobby Unser, thought maybe it wasn't that, and maybe they had run out of fuel. They've ascertained that they had not run out of fuel, but they are very, very concerned about the gearbox.
Jack, it looks like they're in trouble again. We see the car moving very slowly around the back part of the track. Whatever struck has struck again.
Well, it seems to get hung up in a gear, and during practice, that last practice session this morning, that was a problem that befell Al Unser Jr.
Jack,
they're concerned about it.
They had this problem with 2 of the 3 cars back on Friday. They felt they had it beat. And,
but he's going to stay out. I don't understand that.
Well,
maybe he's hoping it's going to get back up into a gear and he can go.
Well, he's still trying to figure out, can he overcome the problem by shifting it a little bit different and something like that. All they do with a gear shift is go forward and back with it from one to the other. Again, sequential on the shift. So in order to get the second, he has to go from 6th to 2nd and so on. And naturally, when you're shifting up, you go from one to the other like that. But going down, you have to shift a bunch of times.
Emerson Fittipaldi being very careful. As you see, the new leader of the race, Al Unser Jr., comes around, completing his 66th lap now with Nigel Mansell running in second. And in third, it's Robbie Gordon.
Welcome back to Long Beach, and it's all action again. Nigel Mansell has just been into the pits at the end of lap 69, and that was to change the right rear wheel. In fact, they changed all the tires, but Nigel Mansell picking up a puncture. We don't know if he just touched the wall. It's quite possible that he may just have grazed the one of the concrete walls around the circuit, but for whatever reason he had to do virtually 3/4 of a lap on a punctured right rear, so he has lost quite a lot of time in the course of that. He was in second place, of course. We haven't yet ascertained whether he's dropped many places through that puncture. Al Unser Jr. still leading. Mansell was in second before the puncture, Gordon in third, Bazell in 4th place, Mario in 5th place, and Michael Andretti in 6th position. But Nigel Mansell definitely will have lost a fair bit of time. We saw him struggling around for at least 3/4 of a lap, and Mansell now charging once again on a new set of tires. Can he make up any of that lost ground? Al Unser Jr. looking fairly comfortable up front as we remain on board with Nigel. Let's watch him around the Long Beach circuit. Somebody else up on the side there. Another car to come to grief. We've lost quite a few cars throughout the course of this race. We're going to go back and take a look at what happened to Mansell and see him struggling around a few moments ago. Well, here he was. This was during the break, and there is that punctured right rear. You can see the tyre virtually off the rim at this point, and he really was having to coast round very slowly indeed. Teo Fabi coming back past him there as well. Mansell making it back into the pits and not losing much more time than it was required to get back in, put a new set of tyres on, and straight back out again. Back on board with Mansell then, as he tries to make up for that lost ground. And here is our race leader, Al Unser Jr. in his first year with the Penske team. There's the running order then. Robbie Gordon up into second, Bazell in third, Mario up to 4th, and Nigel dropping down to 5th position. And off the lead lap now with that punctured tyre. So that really has made quite a difference to the overall standings. He is just ahead of Michael Andretti. An interesting point with Andretti the winner from the first round, and having scored 21 points in the championship so far. Mansell not having scored too well in the series himself. He's only on 5 points in the championship. But Al Unser Jr. looking good for taking 20 points for the win here today. Let's go back to the American commentary.
Yeah, let's keep in mind that on these tires, that they're tubeless. They're tubeless tires. They're very, very thin. So if you look at the front wing in a car, the side plates, for example, could be a knife. If a wing goes up, just touches somebody's tire, it just slices it.
Another quick spin on, and again, the 3 car.
Paul Tracy, trouble. And of course, you know, there's been bad blood already between Nigel Mansell and Michael Andretti. They had words just before the start at Australia. So this is just another chapter in what may become a hot story as the year develops.
There is second place. 72nd lap for Robbie Gordon. He is 28 seconds behind the leader of the race. A good deal of ground to make up. One would suggest almost an impossible amount of ground.
But also keep in mind that all during practice, as we've watched all of it this weekend, Robbie Gordon has been one of the fastest cars, sometimes the fastest car during practice. The kid is one heck of a hard charger. He'll never give up. He'll either wear the car out, wreck it, or try to beat little Al hard.
Get a further update, Gary Gerald.
Just a few minutes ago, we had talked to Derek Walker about how the Robbie Gordon day was progressing. Walker, of course, the owner of the team that puts Robbie on the track. He said, well, I don't think we've got enough to match the Penske's. That was just moments before Emerson encountered his problem. He said it's the usual slipping and sliding on the streets. We wish we may have had a little more downforce, but we think we're okay. So all in all, a pretty positive outlook. We almost got an identical report regarding Raul Boisel, who is running in the next position back and on the lead lap.
Well, we're riding here with Robbie Gordon. Of course, he had accidents in his test sessions. Oh,
Another spin. Well, I'll tell you what, getting into that corner has been tough for everybody. It's one of the Pac West cars, and he's right in the middle of the line.
Yeah,
Boy, look at this. From the flip,
I'm sure that's Dominic Dobson right there, although I can't. The cars are identical in color, so it's Dobson sitting out there. But you know, the bad thing about it is, it's a terrible position to be sitting in for both the guys on the track and himself.
Well, they've got to get it out of there, and there is the question whether or not this should be a full course yellow.
Yes, and you see the course workers are not opting to go out there and help get him off the deal. Look what the cars have to do to go around it.
Well, that's not that far down. Why don't you go out there and give him a pull?
I wasn't even going to offer that part, Paul.
I'll tell you what, course marshals here, of course, all volunteers. They work day on day on day. Here's on board with Nigel Mansell. Cross the start-finish line. Now look ahead for the yellow flags and then for that car in the course.
and remember, he's going 190 right about here as he hits the brakes hard. Now he sees it. It's a pretty good view of it. Remember that Robbie Gordon right now is 26 seconds back of Al Unser Jr. So if there is a full course yellow, it will have a material effect on the incident. Here we are now riding with Gordon as he sees the same thing. Whoa.
Yeah, that's really close. Remember, the guys that can make it on the inside, that's where the track is clean. The guys that have to go on the outside, that's where you find the marble. That isn't an easy place to go around.
And of course, they're going to have to move that car out of the way. So the next lap, you think as you're a driver, you put yourself in Robbie Gordon's seat. You know you got to remember what's going on and look for it next time. Here we go. And looking at this spin.
There it is.
Same problem. The Tracy seems to have too much rear brake, not enough front brake, and you spin. There's no choice either. A guy's got to keep stopping when he gets down there, going from 190 miles an hour to stay down to 70. Hey, you got to stop. That's all there is to it.
Let's look at Michael as he was following Nigel. They, by the way, in a battle for position here. Whoa, little close, huh? Just a little close.
Dan,
Did he
Nigel
play the tire?
definitely slowed suddenly, didn't he, because of traffic. He was in a bind, too. I don't think you can fall.
No, he had traffic to the inside. That's racing right there. Race summary after 76 laps, 5 lead changes, 9 cars out of the race, and we've had 1 full course caution for 6 laps. So still waiting with no full course yellow. They're going to clear that car of Dominic Dobson without going full course. And Al Unser Jr. leads after 77.
And on that replay, the incident there, you saw where Michael Andretti made contact with Nigel Mansell, which caused that right rear tire to go down. The reason Nigel had slowed up so much, that was Emerson Fittipaldi, who had come out around a hairpin and was making his way to the pit lane, and he had slowed down immensely. That slowed Nigel up, and of course that's caused the problem where Michael ran into it. Nigel goes back out on the way, but he lost a few positions and is currently running in 5th place, 1 lap down to our leader, Al Unser Jr., who has a 27-second lead over 2nd place man Robbie Gordon, who is making only a 2nd start here at Long Beach. Last year, of course, was his 1st start and is listed as a DQ, disqualified last year for some aggressive driving which took place between himself and Eddie Cheever. Eddie Cheever, of course, not here this weekend, but he will be at the Indianapolis 500 coming up in May. He is going to be racing for the Maynard team, sponsored out of Wisconsin and running in Indianapolis, and I believe they have 3 or 4 cars going to Indianapolis for that race. There's a good view of Mauricio Guzman in the number 88 team car to Michael Andretti, although they're running as two separate entities. John Bright is the crew chief on that car. I mentioned him earlier. John Bright's been around racing for many, many years, done some racing himself, and has generally been very successful with the crews that he's run, including the John Fitzpatrick Racing World Sports Car entry about 6 months, maybe longer, 8 years ago now. Rounding out the top 5 is Nigel Mansell. Right in front of him, teammate Mario Andretti, and Bo Sala is currently in 3rd. Looking at our 6th place car, it is Michael Andretti looking for the points. Mauricio Guzman in 7th, Teo Fabi in 8th, Adrian Fernandez, the Mexican, in 9th, Robbie Buell now up to 10th. Sweden's Stefan Johansson is currently in 11th, and right behind him, Ari Leindak. Actually, Ari Leindak has just made the pass to get past Johansson and pick up that 11th place position. Sweden's Stefan Johansson now in 12th. Willie T. Ribbs having a great run in 13th. Frank Freon in 14th. Robbie Groff doing very well in his first IndyCar race is 15th. David Jones in the AJ Foyt entry, currently running in 16th position. I spoke to him, as I mentioned earlier today, and he's still having trouble settling into that team. Of course, personality clashes, a very normal thing in the AJ Foyt team, and Davey's just wishing that AJ would have the confidence in him, which would then let Davey worry about the car more so than having to worry about AJ quite as much as he does. But they're getting things together slowly as the season progresses, and David Jones has run very well as a rookie at Indy.
9th, Adrian Fernandez. From 26th to 10th, Robbie Buell. Let's go to Jack Arute.
Al Unser Jr. in for what should be his final stop of the afternoon, working very methodically, but the concern for everyone on pit road is this 60-mile-an-hour speed limit. They're completing their work, and this time Al Jr. is far more careful coming down pit road. We'll wait and see if he's under the 66 drop-dead speed limit.
He's going to stay under it this time, Jack. I can about guarantee you he's got a pretty good lead in the race. Penske's already told him, man, no matter what, don't get another stop and go, because that really could cost him the race.
Very careful on the exit. Carefully with just 2 lines over. Looked perfectly legal to me. Al Unser Jr. Very heads-up driver and very good here. Robbie Gordon should be due for a stop anytime.
4 victories, of course, in his career for Al Unser Jr. Here, this victory, if it comes, his 5th, would give him 20 IndyCar wins in his career, put him one behind Emerson Fittipaldi.
Now we're going to see Al, little Al. He's on his last fuel stop. He won't have to stop again without problems. We're going to see him taking better care of the transmission and trying to guarantee that he doesn't overuse fuel or anything like that for the remainder.
It was good here to see the family of Don Sully Sullivan. We look at one of the Ford-powered cars. He was one of the chief engineers for the first flathead V8 production engine for Ford, 1932. He passed away recently, but family here watching the race today.
That was the most famous racing engine in the world for many, many, many years. You know, I thought that would never leave.
I'll tell you who we are missing, though. Regulars that have been competing in IndyCar racing the last few years. Danny Sullivan, Roberto Guerrero, Scott Brayton, Eddie Cheever do not have rides this year, and they are much missed.
Do you anticipate they show at Indy?
Well, I think some of them will in one form or another.
I think they'd all like to, Sam. They're just looking for a good ride. That's what it all amounts to.
This, of course, the final race before the great Indianapolis 500. ABC will be there on top of everything throughout the month of May.
And think of what a win here would mean to Al Unser Jr. A winner at Indianapolis a couple of years back. In Eclipse, really, since then, as the Gallus team unraveled a bit over the last couple of years. Now he's fallen into the best team in the business. Many people said, could they run 3 cars competently? The answer is yes.
Robbie Gordon, who picked up the lead of the race on Al Unser Jr.'s pit stop, has now completed the 82nd lap, 41 laps since his last stop. Now that seems to be pretty much within the window, but last week at Phoenix, they had this car in the lead of the race and ran it out of fuel. Let's hope that doesn't happen again.
Yeah.
Well, just remember, this is Derek Walker that owns and runs that team. He makes the decision about Robbie Gordon. Derek used to work for Penske for many years, without doubt. He's one of the best team managers in the business, so he'll gamble and shuffle everything he can to get any advantage, or he'll definitely take a gamble on fuel.
Robbie Buell, who runs 9th, has gone 42 laps since his last stop. That's the furthest lead reach out since the last stop. They keep riding Robbie Gordon. He's going to stay up. There he comes. He comes into the pits. Robbie Gordon, leader of the race at the moment. Al Unser Jr. should pick up the lead as he flashes by on the main straightaway. Gary Gerald is there.
They were very concerned about that fuel problem that ran him out of the race last week at Phoenix, but they said they found the problem. They wouldn't talk about it. They were not concerned coming in today. He He's here for his final service. He's got a shot today in his first ever IndyCar victory. He was second last year at Mid-Ohio. We've got him rolling in 13.3 seconds, Paul.
Raul Boesel in third place as Robbie Gordon rolls back to the track, and I use the word rolls advisedly. Very, very careful. They can't accelerate until they get past those last pits. Boesel now should be the next car to come in as he comes in and picks up second place with Robbie Gordon's pit stop.
Well, that beautiful onboard camera that's on Robbie Gordon's car, you can see how he accelerated a little bit too fast and he slowed right back down. You can see that from the camera. It's the best onboard camera shots I've ever seen.
Boesel is having himself a fine day. He, of course, was in many ways the unsung hero of last year. He came very, very close to winning several races, including the Indianapolis 500 for the Dick Simon team. Dick Simon has been around as a car owner for many, many years. He, too, has gone winless through all these many seasons of effort. It would be great to see Boesel, who pits now, have some success.
Raul Boesel turns on to pit road. Jack Arute waits.
And Paul, Dick Simon's Duracell crew is going to do a calculated stop. Not a time stop, but 15 gallons. They have measured exactly how many gallons. They've got a mark on the tank. When they hit it, they pull and disconnect. And now they're going to drop. They're having a problem changing the rear tires. They've completed that. In 10.9 seconds, he's off and away. He's looking for second spot. Doesn't think he can beat Unser Jr., but he thinks he can go into second.
We're looking, too, for Robbie Gordon, who now is down in the first turn.
Side by
making
side
his turn
with
in
Teo
number
Fabi.
one and battling with Teo Fabi, though not a battle for position. But nevertheless, he certainly did get out ahead of Raul Boesel.
It's really not like Robbie Gordon to let anybody pass him because he normally wouldn't know that we're for a position or not right then because Teo is really on the move right now.
But you know, Bobby, this is a great drive for Robbie Gordon. I started to say earlier that he had crashes in all his testing situations, including a really bad one in Phoenix, but and trouble, of course, at the first race at Surfers Paradise. This is a very steady run he is having, and he's being rewarded by attrition ahead of him on the road. I think he could realize today that a steady run can bring great fruits.
The yellow car, Teo Fabi, is 10th place, a lap behind the lead of the race.
The blue and white car, Robbie Gordon, just another mention. In my opinion, he's a young A.J. Foyt.
Michael Andretti makes his stop, Gary.
As usual, he brings it in hot. He doesn't have to lock up the tires, but he hits those marks perfectly, and this crew goes to work. Elated, of course, as he came back to IndyCar racing with a victory on the streets of Australia, but as we alluded earlier, it's been a disappointing weekend in many respects. He's rolling smoothly just under 14 seconds. He should be good for the rest of the distance.
Michael Andretti comes in fourth place. Adrian Fernandez passed him on the straightaway. As he made the stop, he should come out and join the field somewhere very close to his father, Mario. He'll be making his last passes down the Shoreline Drive here. Again, look at all the braking marks as they go into the first turn, and Michael is coming back up to speed. Al Unser Jr. has a 36-second lead over second place Nigel Mansell. Robbie Gordon is third. We'll be back after this message and a word from our ABC station.
And one thing that may favor Nigel Mansell here, although he had that problem with the right rear tire that offset him as far as timing is concerned on the pit stops, it's put him back up to second place now, not having to make his pit stop. And the question is, can he go the distance without having to make one more stop? We are on lap 87 right now of 105. If Nigel can get that car to go all the way, that's certainly going to help him just a little bit. He's currently running in second position, a lap down to Al Unser Jr. Robbie Gordon coming out after all those pit stops is now third. Raul Boesel fourth. Mario Andretti fifth. Michael Andretti is in sixth. Adrian Fernandez in the Gallus team having a great run. The Mexican in seventh. Mauricio Guzman is in eighth. In ninth place it is Teo Fabi, who you see there from on board with Robbie Gordon. And in 10th place, Sweden's Stefan Johansson. Robbie Gordon looking for a second place, currently running third, but looking for a second place finish, which would be his best in the IndyCar series. As we mentioned, disqualified here last year and last week at Phoenix. In the lead of the race, ran out of fuel, and we think just for miscalculation could have been a possibility that the fuel pickup just was not picking up the last gallon of fuel or so to get him around the track. Scott Goodyear is back in the pits in front of us. There was a very close incident that took place as Mario Andretti exited the pits. Scott Goodyear was coming in and they're pitted right next to each other, and there was almost a collision right in pit lane, which caused for a lengthy pit stop from Mario Andretti, but he's managed to hang on into that fifth position ahead of son Michael. On board, Robbie Gordon ahead of us Emerson early with Paul Tracy, and Bobby Rahal going out very early on in the race after just a couple of laps with an oil line problem. And Toyota coming to the series possibly in 1995. They're doing extensive testing with Juan Manuel Fangio and PJ Jones in the Dan Gurney All-American Racers team. And that Toyota, depending on the testing and the money and the financing, should be coming to IndyCar racing in 1995. There you see once again Robbie Gordon in the number 9 Valvoline sponsor car making his charge, currently running in 3rd position at Long Beach.
Back at the Toyota Grand Prix of Long Beach, one of the world's most enduring symbols, the Goodyear Blimp Eagle, based in Carson, California, has been providing these beautiful aerial pictures. Goodyear blimps have been flying over major sporting events since 1925. Emerson Fittipaldi with a gearbox problem. Now he's pit side with Jack Arute.
And Paul, he made a hasty trip back here because the first person you went to talk to was Roger Penske and Al Unser Jr.'s pit. What did you try to do? Describe what had happened to your gearbox so they could radio to Al Jr.?
Yes, exactly, Jack. I mean, my car was flying. I was so happy the way the race was going. And then I started having problems shift from 5th to 4th. And then I lost 4th, 3rd, 2nd, and then all the gears. And I just told Roger, for all, really be careful because we have a critical problem in the gearbox. I hope we can finish. I mean, he runs so strong.
Well, let's check in with Gary Gerald for some more information on pit road.
Jack, there was momentary concern that Michael Andretti may have had a broken header, but the crew says it sounds fine as it came by the front straightaway just seconds ago. Interesting note on Raul Boesel. We understand the team was fined $100 for unattended equipment on pit road. Dick Simon's comment, it was worth it for an 11-second pit stop. Also, Adrian Fernandez started 17th. He was 5th when he made his pit stop. He's running solidly in the top 10. A much more impressive showing for this young man.
Boy, no question about that. Nigel Mansell now 2nd place, but 37 seconds behind Al Unser Jr. Bobby Unser, that tire actually worked out in a strange sort of way.
Well, it really did. If he's got enough fuel to go the last, which I think he does, and the tire didn't hurt him that much because one of the things is he was able to avoid the last hairpin. The new rules allow you to come in what they call the shortcut into the pit, which saved him probably another 8 to 15 seconds, Paul. That's a big saving all the way around for a guy with flat tires.
The point is that both the leader and the 2nd place driver have had their problems during this race, just as Paul Tracy, who won it last year, had to make 2 pit stops for cut tires. So this is an incident-filled race.
Key battle on the course as Teo Fabi has been battling the last several laps, trying to hold off a charging Stefan Johansson battle for position. And at the same time, the leaders have been working their way through this. So here is an ongoing battle for 9th place that the leaders have to handle up.
Fabi has really run hard today. I think it's as hard as I've seen Teo run for a long time. His position doesn't show as hard as he's really been running.
As they come on to the pit straight now off of that final hairpin, just ahead you see there it's Fernandez in the red and green car. He is also involved in this fight. He currently runs in 8th place. So Fabi's trying to catch Fernandez, while at the same time Johansson is trying to catch Fabi.
And right behind Fabi, of course, is Robbie Gordon, who needs to get by them pretty quick in order to chase Little Al. So it's getting to be a pretty tight race towards the end here.
This will be a test of Gordon's patience and his skill.
93 laps into the record book.
There's a green and red car of Adrian Fernandez. In a lot of ways, he's been the star of the show today. He's really come from a long ways back to being way up in the top 10 consistently.
The 88 car there is Mauricio Gugelmin. He also is holding on for position, running in 7th place right now. And Fernandez is there and ready to fight. All 4 of them now begin to move close together, so we're going to end up with a 4-way battle for 7th place here.
Of course, everybody works the entire race, Paul, to get down to the very last and have their shootouts dead. Middle of the race is usually just for position.
Fernandez and Gugelmin both running the Renault chassis, which is new this year. Both teams very pleased with it, at least so far. So these are nearly identical machines.
2 key passing areas here at Long Beach. One off of Seaside. They're heading for that right now, where you can slam down the gears and try to get inside your competitor, block the corner on him and take the corner away. Neither one can do that there. The other key at the end of the long main straightaway.
Yes, and the track is slippery right now, and the tires are pretty well worn right now, so it's hard to drive in the turn deeper than the other guys.
So in front, it's Al Unser Jr., 35 seconds ahead of Nigel Mansell as we move to the final 10 laps here in Long Beach.
Leader Al Unser Jr. has completed 97 out of the 105 laps, and he certainly looks as though he's heading for his 5th victory here at Long Beach. Just trying to come up past Stefan Johansson and Raul Boesel. Raul Boesel actually holding on to 4th position. So Al Unser Jr. having lapped everybody up into 4th place. Nigel Mansell holding on to 2nd place. And it looks as though he has managed to get away with that cut tyre without it actually costing him much time. He took his 2nd pit stop on the same occasion as changing the tyres when he got the puncture. And he was just inside the window for him to be able to run from that stop right through to the end. So it looks as though Mansell luckily enough to get away with that. Let's rejoin our American commentary team to lead us through to the final stages of the race.
Bobby is right there. We watch the battle from the nose of Robbie Gordon's car, who runs in 3rd and seems to be a little wary of getting involved in this fight.
Well, he doesn't seem to be pressing hard right now. It isn't like a Robbie Gordon way. Normally he would just annihilate those guys. So maybe he is getting smarter, like Sam said a little while ago.
Well, Bobby, I think the point is resolved when you see the gaps between the drivers. I think Gordon realizes that even if he gets by, he's probably too far behind Mansell to reel him in. Similarly, Gordon is far enough ahead of Boesel that he can afford to be cautious at least for a few laps, maybe not the whole way.
And Sam, he needs to do it. He's driving for a super good team in Derek Walker this year, so he needs to show that he's smart as well as fast.
Yeah, that's the point. That's what he could add to his resume today, is that he's smart. So far, we know he's quick.
Teo Fabi continues to work at the back of Fernandez. Looks like he's in a position, if he's going to make a try, it may occur as they come off of Seaside. Look how hard he's trying there as he locks him up.
That was my word. You can't say he's not trying, Paul.
Bobby would move into 8th place if he can get by Fernandez.
That's the Jim Hall team, the yellow car right there. Bobby, that's the Jim Hall team. They've not done so well in racing the last couple of years. They're really trying hard to get all their momentum gathered back up again.
So for the moment at least, Teo Fabi cannot get the job done. Al Unser Jr. has the lead of the race with 99 laps complete. We'll be back with the finish. Little Al has won at least one race every season since '88.
And just to add to the Robbie Gordon situation, as we ride on board with him now down Shoreline Drive at approximately 185 miles per hour going into turn 1. I think you'll find what's happening there with Derek Walker, the very experienced team owner and previous Penske employee. They are 13 and a half, actually now 15 seconds. They are losing time very quickly to Nigel Mansell. In the last 3 laps, it's gone from 10 seconds to 15 seconds. I think you'll find that Derek Walker is just telling Robbie Gordon, just hang on to where you are. Let's pick up some points. He currently only has 6 championship points. Don't go try and win this one. Let's get a nice, safe 14 points in the championship. It's a long series, a long season. Let's try and finish better up than he did last year, which of course was in the 8th position, in that 9th position in the championship, after leading a few of the races and then making a few costly mistakes here and there. There, once again, our leader, Al Unser Jr., as we have 5 laps to go. Al looking for his 5th win here. He put 4 in a row together in 1991, 1990, 89, and 1988. Finished 4th in 1992 after getting together with teammate Danny Sullivan while leading the race. And of course, last year you saw him get together with Nigel Mansell, which meant he finished back in 21st. Al Unser Jr., just his first season with the Penske team, looking to give them their win here at Long Beach. 2nd in a row, because Paul Tracy won here last year, but the first 4, Al Unser Jr. in that new team. He is very excited about running for those guys in all the meetings, the press conferences, and they ask Al Unser Jr. questions. He generally just keeps saying, I am so happy and so proud to be racing for Roger Penske, and it's such a great team. We do a lot of testing, a lot of practice, a lot of input between all 3 drivers. As you heard, Emerson Fittipaldi had gone straight to Roger Penske to tell him to tell Al exactly what happened to the gearbox, so the same thing hopefully does not happen to Al, and with almost a whole lap lead on the rest of the field. Looks like Al Unser Jr. is going to be coming away with his 5th win of the Toyota Grand Prix of Long Beach.
At the Toyota Grand Prix of Long Beach. 102 laps complete. Al Unser Jr. has had his lead whittled down just a little bit. Now only 29 seconds ahead of Nigel Mansell. Mansell's doing everything he can. Little Al is being careful. In fact, a very careful pass just a moment ago of Dominic Dobson. He now runs alone and has clear sailing ahead as we come to the closing laps here in Long Beach.
If he wins, this, of course, will be a win in his third start for Penske. It took Emerson Fittipaldi 15 starts to win a race for Roger, and Paul Tracy 16 starts.
Bobby, you drove for Roger for many years. What will that do for little Al in terms of his relationship with Roger?
Well, his relationship couldn't be any better than it is right now, no matter if even if he won Indianapolis. He thinks the sun rises and moon sets at little Al. The thing that will make a difference is Roger fuels himself on winning. If he wins, he just becomes obsessed with winning more. There's nobody like Roger Penske in the racing world. And history will always show that he's an individual that nobody else has ever come close to.
And remember, it is Roger Penske who is individually masterminding the pit strategy of Al Unser Jr. today.
Jerry Breon and I were talking this morning on that team, and both of us agreed that without Roger's motivation, without his drive, without his strong desires, everybody in the team would probably be only 50% of what they are.
Well, he makes them all better. By the way, that battle between Fabi and Fernandez has broken off, with Fernandez remaining in 8th place as they come toward the flags. With just one more lap to go after he flashes down the front straight here. It's Unser Jr., Mansell, Gordon, Boycel, Mario, and then Michael Andretti, then Mauricio Gugelmin as we start the final lap.
Well, how about that stat you revealed at the beginning of the show, that for the last 3 years, the man who started second went on to win. This could be the 4th consecutive year for that.
And everybody will battle for second next year. How do you figure that one out? If you're trying to qualify for the pole, I want to only be 1,000 slower than the pole.
Just think the life or the feelings that little Al is leading right now, knowing how bad he really wants to win for the Roger Penske team, worrying about the transmission and traffic. A cut tire could even lose the race for him right now.
He's in clear traffic, though, Bobby, with only a couple of turns to go. He could probably, if he can accelerate off the hairpin here, coast home.
Slide that far, Sam.
Al Unser Jr. about to reassert himself as the king of the beach as he takes the Penske car across the line and picks up the twin checkered flags. Al Unser Jr. is the winner in the Toyota Grand Prix of Long Beach. Chasing toward the flag now, Nigel Mansell, as the celebration begins with the Penske team. I know a special moment for mechanic Richard Buck, who spent a lot of time with little Al in the sprint car days. So a victory once again for that team. Here comes Nigel Mansell, the final 3 corners of the course. Little Al already saluting the crowd and beginning to slow. Is that a happy kid or what?
Oh, he's happy today.
Nigel Mansell through the hairpin for the very last time. His teammate Mario Andretti will be coming to the line too for the last time here. And here is Nigel Mansell, comes toward the flag and picks up 2nd place. Robbie Gordon will come across in 3rd, Raul Boycel 4th, and Mario Andretti finishes in 5th. We'll be back to talk to the winner.
And a very emotional moment for Al Unser Jr. to see him very excited in his car. Shelley Unser, tears from her as they have their first win for the Penske team. And of course, a redeeming factor with Emerson Fittipaldi going out and Paul Tracy going out certainly has made the championship very, very close. We'll take a look at those points for you in just a moment. Nigel Mansell with a very hard-fought 2nd place finish after having the right rear wheel go down on him after contact with Michael Andretti. Battled back to 2nd place. And great to see Robbie Gordon, just 24 years old, get back up on the podium. The first podium finish for him in 1994. He had a couple last year, and I'm sure he will be very happy, as is Derek Walker, who over the first 2 races of the season basically has all he's been doing is repairing cars, and they've been getting wrecked a lot, and has been costing Derek Walker a lot of money. Raul Boesel comes away with a 4th place finish. Mario Andretti in 5th. Michael Andretti is in 6th.
So Al Unser Jr. taking that 5th win here at Long Beach. What a superb achievement. And the 31-year-old former champion back in 1990, really looking good now for the 1994 season. He's fitted into the Penske team absolutely perfectly. There, the final results, a good result in the end for Nigel Mansell, exactly what he needed in the championship, and a fine third place for Robbie Gordon as well. Well, the championship really does close up with that particular result. Emerson Fittipaldi still leading the overall championship with 37 points. Alonso Jr. now right behind in second place with 36 points, and then in third place it's Nigel Mansell with 35 points. So just 2 points separating Emerson Fittipaldi in first and Nigel Mansell in third place. It really does set things up wonderfully for the rest of the championship, and certainly looking forward to some more great battles between the Penskes and the Lolas. Penske's winning today, and the Lolas in second, third, fourth, fifth places. So a good result for both teams. Lola still to have one win this year yet. They still want that win. Penske's have taken 2 now, and Reynard's 1. And Michael Andretti's 6th place. A good result considering he wasn't quite there in terms of overall pace. Well, you can see Alonso Jr. absolutely delighted with the performance from the Penske today, and with the win here at Long Beach. Unbelievable record that he has here. It really is astounding. Sorry we can't bring you the sound on this one.
On that first stop, and I forgot I had a sequential shift, and so I started grinding the gears back and forth. But you know, the Marlboro Team Penske is a super operation, and I am just really, really proud of them, and proud of our Buck. I mean, super job, and I just like to say hello to my kids at home, Cody, Shannon, little Al. Wish you were here.
Well, congratulations to Alonso Jr. and the rest of Team Penske. Let's check in with Gary Gerald. Gary?
Jack, indeed, Nigel Mansell toweling down, the helmet off. You make such a bold move now, just 2 points out of the championship lead on a day when you have a tire go down and you had a very close call with 2 cars in front of you. This is turning out real well.
Hey, did you see that on television on the back straight there with the 2 cars? Holy smoke. I mean, I was almost spinning and just caught it. That was a bit dicey, and then 180, 190 miles an hour on 3 wheels. I didn't enjoy that either. But I'll tell you, the crew worked fantastic, and the Newman Haas team, God bless them, they got me to the finish.
Terrific job, Nigel. He's right there in the championship point hunt us that quick, Paul.
Very much in the fight, and of course looking for a chance to take a win at the Indianapolis 500. But little Al should remember this: no Long Beach winner has ever won Indy after winning Long Beach in the same year. Coming up next month on ABC, it's back to the Brickyard. First on Saturday, May 14th, Auto Racing's best try to beat the clock and grab the pole as we begin coverage of the Indianapolis 500 time trials. Then 2 weeks later, May 29th, it's the sport's most spectacular event, the Indianapolis 500 Live. All next month here on ABC Sports. When we come back, we'll take another look at Robbie Gordon, who finishes 3rd.
So the championship certainly heats up right now after 3 rounds of the 16-round event, and as you heard, the big one is next.
An excellent result for Mansell, and that really does put him up in the overall championship now in that 2nd place. Well, Alonso Jr. setting himself up perfectly now for the rest of the championship, and although last year wasn't one of his best years with the Gallus team, his final year with the Gallus team last year, only managing to finish 7th in the overall series and only taking just the 1 victory in Vancouver, setting his season off well now with a victory here at Long Beach. And as he goes to Indianapolis along with the rest of the teams, he really will be in a good mood for that. The Mercedes engine will be in the back of his Penske for the Indy 500, a whole new complex on the engine situation now with the Indianapolis 500, with Mercedes helping Ilmor, and Ilmor producing a brand new engine especially for that event. So that will be fascinating to see how they get on, and it's interesting to note that Penske taking the gamble to run that brand new engine at the Indy 500, which is surely one of the most, well, if not the most important event on the calendar. After that, they'll be going to Milwaukee to the 1 mile oval and then on with the rest of the championship. But the Penske is looking very, very strong, both on the oval tracks, as we saw at Phoenix last week, and on the street circuits here at Long Beach. Mansell still to take a win in the 1994 season, but he'll be pleased with the points gathering that he's done so far, and particularly with today's result. Just the result he needed for the Newman-Haas team, and a third place here last year, remember, after his problems at Phoenix when he was in some pain and some difficulty still, and losing gears towards the end of the race, getting third on that occasion, and a fine second here today. An interview going on with Robbie Gordon, which I'm
Last
afraid...
weekend down at Phoenix, we had a car we could win with down there. We ran ourselves out of gas trying to play the game. But, you know, here we just rode along all day and turned it up when we needed to. But I guess we didn't turn it up enough in traffic. We just played it too cautious.
How tough was the traffic out there for someone like you?
Traffic was terrible. I saw about 3 accidents in front of me. You know, I just didn't want to be involved in one of them, so I laid back a little bit and rode along.
Indy coming up next.
Indy coming up next. At least we got a few points. Looking forward to it.
Paul?
All right, well, let's take a look at the finishing order here. Still unofficial. It takes about 30 minutes to post it. At the conclusion of the Toyota Grand Prix of
Robbie
Long
Gordon
Beach, of course, Little Al
with a fine third position there, and that really does set things up well for him as well. And not quite matching his best result of second place last year, but the 25-year-old Californian in his local hometown with just the sort of result that he needed to get as well. In the new team for this year with Morca Motorsports and the Valvoline Cummins car really going very well at Long Beach today. Just looking down through the rest of the results, an eventful day for Davy Jones. Robbie Groff having his first ever IndyCar race and finishing just outside the points in 13th position. And Willie T. Ribbs, a slightly disappointing 18th after going very well on Friday in the qualifying sessions held on Friday, but a bit of a disappointing result for Ribbs at the end of the day. Bobby Rahal out very early on when the Honda engine let go after an oil pipe came off, and that was a shame after he'd qualified in 11th place, just about a second off pole position. Very promising run in qualifying for the new Honda powered car. So there you can see the updated championship positions, and Al Unser Jr. in fact matching Emerson Fittipaldi because of the extra point gained through leading most laps. He actually matches Emerson Fittipaldi at the top of the table now, both on 37 and Nigel Mansell on 35. It really has closed things up tremendously, and the next races are looking very, very promising indeed.
2 weeks later on May 29th in the race itself.
I'll tell you what, there is so much to
So
look
the
forward
drivers
to this year's
receiving the
Indy 500.
applause
I
of
can't
the
wait to get to the
crowd here, around
opening
about
day.
100,000
And for the
people
coverage throughout the
at
entire
Long
month,
Beach
all
today
the
to
great
watch this
stories,
race
changes in
and
teams,
watching
the
an
addition
eventful
of
race,
Al
that's for
Unser
sure,
Jr.,
and the
Penske
first
team,
win
the Mercedes,
for Al
the
Unser
Honda,
Jr.
the Ford.
with
I mean,
the
everything
Penske
is
team.
looking
It
so
could be
good
an
for that
historic
one.
victory if he continues like that throughout the rest of the season. Paul Tracy was in trouble again, and still no points for the young Canadian. It's looking tough for him now to really start battling these guys for the championship. And Emerson Fittipaldi looking very strong after his victory last week, just to be outdone by the gearbox. Hope you've enjoyed today's events here on Eurosport. Join us again soon.
Takes his 5th win in the Toyota